I'd like to welcome all of you joining us for our live session today, and also those of you who will be watching the recording at some later date. And first, of course, I hope you are all staying healthy and safe. My name's Gordon Morell, and in addition to being a husband since 1976, a father since 1981, and a grandfather since 2013, I'm also the executive vice president of Yardi, headquartered here in Goleta. You know, March 14th of this year was my 30th anniversary at Yardi. And it was also the day our COVID lockdown began, and Yardi's more than 7,000 employees went from working in our worldwide offices to working from home. And that's a great segue to today's topic of resilience in the workplace. It's about being flexible. In fact, one definition of resilience is the ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. And we all know that 2020 has brought a lot of both. Look, it's no secret that for the past 8 months, it's been difficult for everyone. We've collectively gone through an extended period of anxiety and uncertainty. We've had a global pandemic that pushed us into our homes and onto our screens. We've had a fight for racial justice, and we've gone through a divisive but critically important election. So what can leaders do in this time to really hear, understand, and take care of their employees? Well, we hope today's discussion provides you with some useful tools to move forward. And we've got 3 terrific panelists for you today. Each will speak for a few minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A session. If you'd like to ask a question, use the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You probably know this, but you may need to move your mouse or touch your screen to see that, and the rest should be self-explanatory. We will answer questions at the end of the presentation, and if we don't get to your question, we'll capture it and we'll do our best to answer following the webinar. So now let me introduce you to the 3 panelists that you see here on our screen. We're going to start with Janet Garufas. Janet started at Montecito Bank and Trust in 2004 and has been chairman and CEO since 2017. She began her distinguished banking career as a teller 45 years ago with Security Pacific Bank, which is now the Bank of America. Janet, as many of you probably know, is extensively involved in the community, serving as a trustee, a board of director member, a board president, and or a co-chair for a broad array of organizations and foundations, and many, many awards and accolades have come her way, including American Banker has named her as part of the 25 most powerful women to watch. She was Santa Barbara Woman of the Year in 2017. The Pacific Coast Business Time has had her in the top 50 women in business from 2007 through 2020, and also named her the inaugural Distinguished Achievement Award in 2018. And that's just to name a few. So Janet's going to lead off, but let me introduce the other 2 panelists quickly. Dave Powers is president and CEO of Deckers Brands and has been since 2016. Prior to joining Deckers, Dave served 4 years as vice president of global direct-to-consumer at Converse, where he successfully guided the expansion of the brand globally. He's had several executive leadership roles at Timberland and senior position titles at Gap Inc. Dave's a native of New Hampshire. He resides now in Santa Barbara and loves spending time with his wife and 2 sons, enjoying the outdoors. And then we'll get to Elena Walczak, and as you all know, Elena is president and CEO of Calm and has been since 2015. Elena has served in nonprofit leadership roles for the past 26 years, 19 of those in Santa Barbara County. And the focus for Elena has been on the elimination of violence and abuse and the strengthening of children, families, and communities. Elena is also the proud mom of 10-year-old twin daughters, which I was trying to do the math. Does that make for one 20-year-old, Elena, or 4 5-year-olds? Not sure. All right, we're going to start with Janet, and Janet's going to talk a little bit about how things have gone over at Montecito Bank and Trust and lead us through some specific ideas that she's come up with as COVID took hold. Janet, it's to you.
Thank you, Gordon. And thanks to Elena and her team for, first of all, organizing this and inviting me. I'm grateful to be included, and hope that we can share a little bit about what we've done here at Montecito Bank and Trust. The title of this event today is Resilience in the Workplace. And as I thought about this, one of the things that I think we learned very quickly is that the reason we were able to be resilient in the workplace and to pivot the way we were able to do so well is that we've been building a culture here of community and family at Montecito Bank and Trust for a long, long time. And so it did not start overnight. There was a foundation in place that allowed us to do that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why and how we built that culture, because I think there's lessons in that for all of us. When I came to Montecito Bank and Trust in 2004 and became president in 2006, it was clear to me that we needed to have some glue here to hold us all together. And we were a very small organization, but we had people who really cared about the community. And because Mr. Tobes had organized this bank really with the idea of giving back to the community, it seemed pretty obvious to me to organize our vision about the bank and how we would be together as a company around serving the community. So our mission is simply to make the communities we serve better places to live and work. And we've used that as a guide. And because we've done that, I think we have been able to attract and retain the right kind of people. These people care about each other. They support each other through good and through bad. And one of the ways we started to do that, building that culture was, I know you're going to see this backwards, but it's a book that we've used here in the company called The Leadership Challenge. It was first introduced in 1987 by two academics, Stanford, Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner. And they talk about the 5 leadership practices. And those leadership practices, I'm just going to tell you what they are because I think you'll understand why this has helped us do what we do. The 5 leadership practices are very simple. Model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. And I will tell you that all those 5 practices have been absolutely imperatives, business imperatives for leadership at this organization because it starts at the top. We have a very strong belief in employee engagement as part of this process. We do employee engagement surveys and have done them every year for the last, I think, 8 or 9 years. We just got our participation levels back. We just did the survey and got the participation levels back. And our participation rate was 97%. Now, that is quite extraordinary. I don't know if you know about surveys, but it doesn't usually go that high. So not only are we hearing back from our employees, they want to tell us what they're thinking, they want to tell us what works and what doesn't work, and they feel confident that we're going to be responsive. I think because of all of that, because we've developed credible leadership, we were in a position when the very most unthinkable thing happened to be able to respond in ways that were part of our culture, part of our DNA. So some of the things that we did immediately, you may know that many of our employees volunteer in the community. They volunteer for CALM, certainly. And lots of events happen in the spring, nonprofit events. So we had long lists of our employees who were getting ready to go and volunteer for events. And on Friday, March 6th, when it was pretty clear what was happening in the community, our leadership team got together and decided that we would not ask anybody to volunteer for anything right now. It was just not safe, and we didn't think it was right. So that's where we started, and it wasn't a week later that everything really shut down. Immediately, we created a socially distant work environment. We sent half of our employees who were not required to be in their chairs to help customers and to be face-to-face. We figured out how to let them work remotely from home. We'd never done that before. We held on-site flu shot clinics for our associates and dependents to make sure that they were healthy. We really started with our employees first because we figured if we took care of them, they would take care of everything else. And sure enough, when the PPP program was finally introduced, the CARES Act, literally half of our staff, most of whom had never made a loan in their life, volunteered to be part of the team to get out those loans. And over that time, we made 1,850 loans that saved about 22,000 jobs in the communities where we do business. We couldn't have done that if we didn't have this resilient community inside the organization and a culture that encouraged each other to do what was right. Some of the other things that we did to help our associates, we developed an online portal for COVID resources so that there was a place for them to go to get answers to their questions, cope with stress, talk about emotional wellness and other mental health resources. Our HR department sends a monthly health and wellness newsletter to every single associate. We implemented Zoom within the company so that we could stay connected with each other and do meetings distantly, have a virtual meeting tool. I think everybody's done that. We're all great Zoomers now. We provided every Montecito Bank and Trust associate with face coverings. I have my face covering here with my branded face covering. I have them in blue, black, and white. We gave them t-shirts because we wanted them to feel really good. I don't know if you can see this. It says, practice social distancing, and we changed our logo to separate the M, the Montecito M. And then because we were wearing our masks all the time, we gave every buttons that say, all smiles under my mask. I don't know if you can see that. So, we're trying to make this as easy to do as it is possible to be done. It's not easy, but that's what we're doing. When the orders changed, we ordered thermometers and had them mailed to every single person's home. We've implemented all kinds of safety procedures internally. We have sanitizers at all the door. I mean, all the stuff everybody else is doing, but we're cleaning. We sanitize all of the buildings where people have to work. They're sanitized regularly. So there's lots and lots that we have to do to make sure that people are being taken care of. One of the other things we did was to extend our vacation cash out policy. We knew that many of our associates were suffering, that some of their spouses had been laid off or furloughed. And so we allow our employees to, we expect them to take at least a week's vacation if they want to cash out a week or two vacation this year because they need the extra cash. We've allowed them to do that. And we continue to conduct surveys to understand how people are feeling. And we use that feedback to then feed back to them things that we can do better to make sure that they feel safe, they feel cared for, and they feel comfortable to come to work. We're doing lots of gift cards. We're giving cards so that they can go and buy their families takeout food. And we serve lunch in the branches. We have lunch brought, all the things that I know a lot of you are doing. But whether it's face-to-face in our branches or at home remotely, our associates have really maneuvered through their own personal pandemic response. And we're extraordinarily proud of the work that they've done. They've really done extraordinary things. So, there's a lot of unknowns. It's going to be a long time until we understand the impacts of all of this, especially the mental health impacts. That's where CALM comes in. But what I do know is that each of us has a responsibility to do what we can. And there are so many ways in the workplace that I think we can help our employees feel like they're making a difference and that we're caring for them so they can care for our customers. So I think I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer questions later, but I think that's probably enough for now.
Janet, thank you so much. And thank you for everything you do in our community. Thank you for everything that Montecito Bank and Trust does in our community. We all appreciate you and the bank. Let's talk to Dave for a second. Dave, you've been CEO over there at Deckers for a while, and I know that maintaining culture is really important at Deckers and is important to you. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the culture there and your Art of Kindness event. Maybe some of the examples of the types of things that Deckers has been doing. Dave?
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. Happy to. And thanks, Janet. Those are some excellent examples of things that you're doing for your employees. And I wrote a few things down here that are still great examples because we're going to be in this situation for a while. Hope everybody's doing well, and I appreciate the time to speak with all of you. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, it's been challenging. We've spent a lot of time at Deckers, and Janet touched on it as well. You can't underestimate the importance of culture. And we're working at that. Deckers has always had a strong family first, community-based culture. And we've really been trying to enhance that over the last 4 years and build on it, because in times like this, you need to be able to lean on your culture. And that is proven to be a big part of our resilience as a business and as an organization, as a team over the last few months. We went into this back in March. People were really nervous about what was happening in the world, but they're also really scared about potentially losing jobs. And the first thing that we decided to do, or had to do, is be there for them. We had to let them know, listen, we're here for you. All right, you are our number one priority. We're going to take care of you. We're going to minimize as best we can any layoffs or furloughs. We, knock on wood, we didn't have to do serious layoffs. We had limited furloughs. We didn't give people pay cuts. We said, we're going to take the hit as a company because we believe in you. We know you need us, and we need you to be your best selves over the long term. And so, this has really helped. And I guess the few things that I've learned through this the most, that you need to really maintain that level of culture during critical, tough times. And for us, what that really meant is being transparent. When people are nervous and scared and unsure of what's happening in the world, they want the truth, right? And I think we've all experienced that on a macro level right now. We're looking for the truth in this challenge. And I committed to the organization that my communication will always be honest and open and transparent as best we can. And so I immediately started doing weekly video calls that we shared with the global organization to reassure them, to let them understand what we're doing to assist them in the work from home environment, what the business is looking like, what we need to do to focus, et cetera. And that's gone a long way. It just gives people a sense of, that we're in this together with them and we have their backs. The other piece is over communicating. The more you communicate to your teamers, and also, and when you are communicating, be aware of the fact that you're also communicating to their families at the same time, because that's heavy weighing on their minds. They're at home, they're with their families, and you need to be able to that fact. But we've ramped up our level of communication dramatically to be able to keep people updated and engaged and connected through all of this. Showing empathy and understanding has been super important for us. It's actually been, in some ways, a real breakthrough for our organization to be able to be vulnerable and open with each other and our employees. And what's one thing that's been a big positive coming out of the Zoom calls and people being home is that there's this level playing field. You don't feel like there's all these levels anymore, and you're getting to know people at a much different level and an honest level. And things like, COVID, but also the Black Lives Matter movement, allowed us to have really open and honest conversations with people about how they're feeling. I've never had so many conversations in my, last 25 years of my career about emotions in the time of business and how people are feeling and how they're working through things, and just being there for them and listening. It doesn't take much to spend, 30 seconds writing a text or an email, or just having a 5-minute phone call with somebody at our DC or in our stores that are struggling. And so it's been a great learning for our organization. And I think every level of leadership across the company has embraced this new kind of open and honest and vulnerable type of communication and connectivity with our employees. Because at the end of the day, they want to feel safe, right? And we need to let them know that we're doing everything we can to support them and be there for them, so that they don't have to worry about it. They can focus on taking care of their families and themselves. And when they do plug in to work, that they're bringing their best selves to work. Part of that also is giving people hope, right? And we spent a lot of time figuring out how to get people motivated towards something to work for. And we said, we're going to work through this together. We've been through adversity before, especially in the Santa Barbara community with the mudslides and the fires, et cetera. We know how to pull together, but we needed to give them a clear vision. And we said, we're going to come out of this stronger. We're going to invest in our people, in our brands. We're going to, make sure that our business is, we're not skimping on investing in our business. This is going to be a long journey that we're in together. And we set a positive tone. We gave them clear expectations, and we really got something there to work for and be excited about, which I think has been a real catalyst for them to be motivated. But the biggest thing I want to share with all of you today is what we found through this is that finding purpose through giving back in times of adversity gives people hope, and it gives them motivation to endure. And as Elena said the other day, we were talking about this, and for some, it becomes their coping mechanism. They need purpose. They need something that's more important than all the nonsense and the challenges they're dealing with on a regular basis. And for us, it had to be more than just the business, because when you're sitting home with your family and your Zoom call and your kids are running around, and you're trying to balance everything, the company and the business becomes less and less important. And I totally get that. I felt that myself. So we've invested in giving back. And I'm really proud around the way our teams have pulled together, have given their time to the community. We just hosted our first ever this year, what we call our Global Art of Kindness event. We all can use more kindness in the world on a regular basis. And it was supposed to be a one-day event where all of our employees globally would have the day off in their communities. And because of COVID, we couldn't do that over one day early in the summer. But in September, we made it a global kindness event for a week. And it was powerful. It was powerful. I didn't think we were going to be able to do it virtually, but there are so many ways to donate your time where you don't have to be in a group with other people. We volunteered over 2,000 hours in that week globally, which is 100 more hours than we served the entirety of last year. It was an incredible team effort, but the camaraderie that it brought to people, we were texting each other, we were sharing photos, we were highlighting people, was amazing. And some of the most exciting things that I felt out of that was the emotion I felt when people were emailing me and telling me how much it meant to them to be able to give back, and how that was a great way to combat stress. It was a great way to combat anxiety. It gave them purpose and it gave them hope. And it really uplifted their spirits in a time when things are pretty tough. And so for me, that was our biggest learning. I've kind of always known the value of service, but to see it in that kind of scale globally at all levels of the organization was truly powerful. The other thing we did is as though some of you may know, we put together a fund, a Santa Barbara Better Together fund, which started by a donation by Deckers. And we then ended up making sure that was understood by the organization, where the intent of that fund is to help small businesses and their businesses and their families. It's been a great partnership with Gordon and Janet and others in this service. But it was also important for our company and our employees to know that that's what we're doing outside the company. Within the company itself, we did everything we can, and we are continuing to do to take care of people. We gave every employee around the globe access to this app called Headspace, which is a mindfulness and wellness app. So there's meditation, there's all kinds of ways to just kind of unplug and connect with yourself and get grounded through the app. And we've had great engagement on that. We gave everybody Friday afternoons off for the end of the year so they could spend time with their family and regroup. Last year, we actually gave everybody unlimited personal time off, which sounds crazy, but we do that. And the challenge is to get people to actually take the time off. And so you really have to lead by example, which is not a bad thing, but you have to show that it's okay to unplug. You don't have to be a hero, especially in this environment. Do what you need to take care of yourself. Everybody's different. Everybody's working through this in their own way. You need to be empathetic to that and give everybody the space to do that on their own way. November for us, obviously it's Thanksgiving, but we turn this into a month of gratitude. So we've been sharing notes across the globe and within the community of who we're grateful for, what we're grateful for. Tomorrow, myself and the leadership team are spending 4 hours, and we're handing out turkeys and gratitude journals to our employees in Goleta. So they're driving into the parking lot, and we'll be handing those out and just waving and saying hi, because they need connection, they're craving connection. And then we're just encouraging people as anytime I can to take time off and unplug and go for a walk and go for a hike and just reconnect with their bodies, reconnect their families, and lean on their coworkers. So leading by example has been critical, but I think overall the biggest thing that we're learning and doing to help people stay resilient is giving them connection, giving them purpose, giving them hope, and a sense of giving back to the community, and that we're doing everything to make them feel safe and supported, so they really don't have to worry as much about the work, and they can take care of themselves for the long term. So a little bit of what we're doing, and I hope that's helpful, but I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Dave, thank you. That was terrific. It's really great to hear some of the things that Deckers is doing, both in the community and also in your own offices. Just sounds like you've got a great culture over there. Maybe we'll get to more of that during the Q&A. And before we get to Elena, I want to remind everybody listening now that there is the Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen down there. If you press that button right over there, you'll be able to type in questions. I'll be able to see them, and hopefully we can get to them before the end of our hour. But for now, we're going to turn to Elena Walczak, who is the CEO and has been at COM for the last few years, doing a fantastic job, I might say. And Elena, I think you told me a little while ago, you've got about a 4-hour presentation, but you're going to compress it down into about 8 or 9 minutes for us, yeah?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank my co-panelists and you, Gordon. I've had really the pleasure of working with each of you over the past several years, and I appreciate our colleagueship and our friendship. And I also just want to, on behalf of CALM, but on behalf of our community, I want to thank you for your leadership in our communities, both within the regional business world, but also the philanthropic communities. You've done a lot of different things, not just in the last 8.5 months, but over years. So really, really grateful. And I know Gordon set the tone at the beginning, but just again, wanted to acknowledge this moment that we find ourselves in. It's a very intense moment. And I want to join Janet and Dave and just emphasizing how important it is that we really make the time and space for wellness for ourselves and for our staff teams. And right now, I think our staff are feeling lots of different things. They're riding a roller coaster of emotion, but right about now, 8.5 months into this pandemic, I would say first and foremost, there's a lot of burnout. And burnout is really simply the exhaustion of body and mind. Burnout causes lower motivation. It usually occurs when work demands are increasing, when there's an imbalance between the demands of work and one's coping mechanisms or coping resources. So if you think about the moment we're in, workload has gone up and coping mechanisms have plummeted. So that's going to cause burnout for our staff. And then I think there's also compassion fatigue or secondary trauma, which is something we're very familiar with at CALM because we're in the business of trauma. But that's really the decreased ability to feel compassion or empathy for others. And this is a little bit more insidious than burnout. It really gets into your spirit and into your soul. It's not just an exhaustion of your mind and your body, but it's truly more of like your essence. And we're steeped in this every day. And what it is just as we hear stories of trauma, you can't help but carry that with you. And as everyone is feeling so stressed and anxious right now, that compassion fatigue is a real thing. So acknowledging that our employees have it right now. And, at CALM, the antidote for trauma is resilience. And I know that's a buzzword that gets lobbied around a lot during this time, but there really is a lot of study and research behind resilience. And resilience in an organization is parallel to resilience in an individual, but there's a few different things. So I want to go over the 4 factors that I think are really important in building resilient organizations. I want to give a great big thumbs up to Dave because he actually talked about many of these. So Dave, you may not know it, but you're an expert in resilience. But the first is flexibility and being able to adapt and respond. And of course, I think we're all doing that quite a lot. The second is a focus on communication and building social connections, big and small. Third is maintaining a continued focus on the quality of the work that we're doing. And the fourth really is what Dave was just talking about, creating a sense of shared purpose and hope. But this can't be Pollyanna. This can't be just words that we say and we tout hope and purpose and adaptability. Like, this is not the time to just be glib. It's really, we have to be real and authentic and grounded in this. So, for example, with flexibility, obviously we need HR flexibility. So we have to look at work schedules and job roles, and we're all dealing with emergency family leaves and all of those things. But we also have to really emphasize healthy boundaries, and we have to model those boundaries. We have to rotate employees potentially from really high stress duties to give them a break and give them some lower stress duties. I think we as leaders have to talk about change as a constant, look at change as an opportunity, not just a threat to be afraid of, because change is just what we're living in, and there's going to be so much more of it. So we have to become accustomed to it. And we need to try to encourage work-life balance, even though, you know, I've got those 2 10-year-olds right now, probably on tablets in the back so that I can be here. And it's just, it is what it is. Like, we're all juggling, and we have to acknowledge that for our staff. The second area about communication and connections, I think Dave said it perfectly. We can't be communicating enough. So we have to have open and honest, transparent communication. It has to be two-way, and it has to be all the time. And we should be communicating information, but also expectations and goals. I think we have to stay really clear on that. One thing that I found is that I sent individual emails to every single Calm employee at different times throughout this pandemic, and that blew people's minds. Like, I sent a personal note and I got a personal note back, and we had a little email dialogue, and that made such a difference. And it was a simple thing. It didn't take very long, but it really mattered. I think right now our staff needs to know that they can trust us. We have to, and again, as Janet said, you have to lean into culture well before a crisis, but really having that trust established. And as leaders, I think we have to share our successes, of course, but we also have to share our struggles. And there has to be a balance, because we can't be those perfect people that's always in a happy-go-lucky place, and I'm raising my kids and running an agency and baking bread and painting pictures, and I'm doing it all, because then my staff won't trust me because it'll seem too glossy. But I also can't come on my weekly Zoom call and just fall apart and complain about everything. So there has to be this balance between being real, but also being solid, so that staff have someone safe to turn to. And I think one thing I'll just offer too that we changed up in our senior management teams is we created an opening question. And the question is usually a business-focused question about what kinds of qualities of leadership are we aspiring to right now, or how is racism showing up at Calm, or whatever it is, whatever the question might be. But it gives people a place to check in personally and professionally, and just creates that space. And I have found that really important for building connection amongst our teams. The other thing I would say too about the quality of the work, the third area, is that for us, the quality of our work is the health of our staff. Our business is the quality of our staff and their ability to work with clients. So as I was saying, setting boundaries, giving clear expectations, really developing a culture where staff can say no if they need to, because we have to see our staff as humans. They're not just employees. They're not just productive workers. They have to have space to be. But we also have to remind them of continued standards, because we're doing this work for our clients. So, and in this time of so much uncertainty, and so much amorphousness, if that's a word, giving boundaries. And I know that I've struggled with that, but I have to remind myself I'm not just being a hard ass, or maybe I'm not even being a hard ass. I'm creating a container for my staff to show up and to still meet expectations. We created a commitment to remote work, which We adapted from IBM. I actually have it right here, and we sent it out to our staff, and people really responded to it. The things on it: we pledge to support flexibility for personal needs. We pledge to support times that are not camera ready, which those happen. We pledge to be kind, and under each one, it gives examples of how that might show up in the workplace. And our staff really resonated with that. There's still commitment to excellence and quality, because we have clients that need us, and they need us to be at our best, but we also have to take care of each other. And then finally, I'll just end, Dave mentioned this too. The fourth area of organizational resilience is purpose and hope. So obviously, I think that comes a little bit easier in the social sector, that we are of purpose all the time, but it's helping staff recommit to the mission and vision, helping every single staff member understand how they fit into the bigger picture. And I think purpose comes from values. So helping people understand their personal values, but how they connect to organizational values. So at Calm, we value that we're a learning organization. We learn from our mistakes. Oh boy, have we learned a lot in the last 8 months, but we've talked about those. We value relationships. The work we do to heal trauma, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because we build quality relationships with our clients and with partner agencies. So we have to model that internally as well. And that has been a core value for us during the pandemic. So I think just giving staff opportunities to remember why they're here, why they do the work that they've chosen to do, and helping them to maintain momentum, helping them remember that they're part of something bigger than themselves, is really important for folks when they're struggling with burnout and compassion fatigue, like all of us are doing. So I will pause there. My 4 hours of presentation hopefully can get discussed in the Q&A, but I'll turn it back over to Gordon.
Elena, thank you. And I'll ask Janet and Dave if you could unmute also, and we'll try to have a bit of a discussion here for the next 20 minutes. We've had a couple of great questions come up. So I want to start with one, and maybe Dave, I might address this one to you first. And our attendee says, I love hearing leaders talk about the vulnerability in the workplace. Dave, can you or others speak more about how the transition was received by employees, and how did your leadership, how did they get on board to be receptive to that vulnerability? Was that a concerted choice or something that just occurred by necessity? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it doesn't come easy for most people, obviously, because they would be doing it more often. But one of the things that I'm grateful for that we did about a year ago at this time is I took my leadership team on a leadership journey. We brought in an outside consultant because I felt like we were a team, but we weren't having the right tough conversations, and we weren't resolving our differences, in a positive, productive way, and we were avoiding tough issues. And so we went on this journey with an outside consulting firm. Took us 4 months, but it was a lot of really putting opening yourselves up to your colleagues. We learned a lot about each other on a personal level. The type of person they are, what lights them up, what is frustrating for them. It was a really powerful journey that we went through, and we had just finished all that work in February, and it couldn't have culminated at a better time going into this situation. And in hindsight, it was one of the best things I've ever done in my career. It takes the anxiety out of the room. It helps people just feel more comfortable themselves. And if you know anything about leaders, generally they want to have all the answers. They want to be seen as unflappable, as Elena was saying, at home and doing everything and taking care of the kids and cooking. You want to be perfect, but we're not. We're human just like everybody else. And I think through this, I think the thing that we did, and I tried to do as much as I could, and I've learned a lot through my wife being on Calm and other ways of just, showing up and showing vulnerability. And I started doing that with the leadership team. I started doing it with the company, sharing my personal stories, opening up to them. And it became kind of, not that it was like spread like wildfire, but it definitely spread through the organization, where I was getting updates from leaders in the organization stating they were on phone calls with employees who were crying and just, having real tough moments in front of their colleagues, and their colleagues showed up for them and were there for them. So we didn't go into this with the intent of, hey, we're going to unleash vulnerability in the corporation and challenge everybody to open themselves up. But I think leading from the front, having the leadership team embrace that heading into this, and then leading by example has helped us tremendously. And one of the, obviously the Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others, their murders were tragic. It did crack something open in our company that really brought people down to being human and showing empathy and caring for each other. And we embraced that in the organization, and we still do. And I think that was, if there's a silver lining on that, it was a real game changer for us to be able to have these kind of conversations.
Dave, that's fantastic, and I just appreciate just I can hear your heart and passion. I appreciate it. And Janet, can I turn to you kind of with the same thing? Because I just like this theme given what we're talking about today. So how did your employees and how did you get the leadership on board with the kinds of things that had to happen? I mean, Deckers and Montecito Bank and Trust are very different types of organizations. And I'm wondering if there were any similarities or any differences in how you approached the same issues.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. First of all, I was really impressed, Dave, with all of the things that you were talking about. I'm thinking, oh yeah, we did that. Oh, we did that. We did. I mean, I think there's some themes here that, if you're a leader who is going to lean into this and you really want to help your organization become resilient and thrive, not just survive this pandemic, then you're going to be thinking about a lot of these things. They're going to manifest themselves in different ways. But you're going to be thinking about a lot of these things because these are the things that matter. I guess partly I would tell you that, we've been at this for a long time. I have a feminine perspective on leadership, so I have a very shared leadership model. I've built a leadership team here. We've been together for a number of years now. We've gone through a number of annual workouts together, leadership challenge refreshes every year, speed of trust, things where we have intentionally sat down and said, okay, let's crack this open and talk about it. So that's a practice that we have employed here for a long time. One of the things that I learned though about this practice, there's two things I will talk about. That really impressed on me how important it was for people. I know it's something that we do, but how important it was and what people were taking up from it. The first one was we have 2 corporate meetings a year, one in February and one in the summer. They're really places where our employees, everybody's invited. They love to come. It's dinner. You have a glass of wine or a beer. You connect with each other, and then we, do some business stuff. The summer one is always fun because we do it at the Santa Barbara Club. It's a barbecue. It's more casual. And we knew people were really going to be missing that this year. So we thought we got to do something. And our wonderful marketing department figured out how to hold this sort of corporate virtual event. And just like this, where there's a chat room, people were so excited to see each other. I mean, the chats just kept, oh my gosh, I see, I love your kitchen. All the things that people say. It was so heartwarming. And they really wanted to see us, the leadership team, because we're all remote. And they really wanted to connect with us. And so each of us in our own way, in the words that we used, we didn't do a lot of business stuff. We really spoke from the heart about how it's been for us. And there was a lot of emotion and tears, and we got incredible feedback from our employees about how important that was to them. That first of all, that we could all share it together, and that we made a space where it was okay to come and have that conversation. The second thing that really surprised me is you talked about having this increased communication. and transparent communication, so critical. You know, communication is always it's always the thing you never get enough of, or you don't ever do it right all the time. But implemented right away, weekly one-on-ones with all of my direct reports, and they in turn implemented very frequent one-on-ones, just touching in because people were at home. Many people were at home. And the quality of the conversations that I am having with my direct reports in these one-on-one conversations is markedly different than what was happening in person in the bank, because it was all business, right? Now it's like, how are you doing? Oh, wow, gee, I see you painted that wall. And, you know, how are you feeling? Oh, that Christmas card, that backdrop, you painted that? That's so cool. I mean, you know, we're having these really personal conversations, and we're talking about how they're feeling personally and what's working and what's not working and what's happening at home and how are the kids. And people are really becoming very close to each other in a way that surprised me, but that was super important for people, that human connection, because we are so in some ways disconnected. Those personal connections are getting really quite remarkable. So
you know, I think, thanks, Janet. I think Dave mentioned maybe this is a silver lining in an otherwise pretty dark cloud. And
Yep.
I know we're all hopeful that some of the things that we're learning as a result of the last 8 months are things that can stay with us. And along that line, maybe my next question that has come in from our participants is, what are some ways, and Janet, you mentioned team building, and Dave, you did as well. Elaine, I'll turn to you on this one. What about new ideas for team building over the virtual format? Like, are you doing anything differently in your staff meetings? Are you doing anything fun, anything that's creative that you weren't doing before? And it's okay to say no, you know, and we can turn to others as well, because this is a tough one. How do you take this virtual world and suddenly, you know, reinvent what you had been doing in the office?
I mean, I think we're all doing it differently. And I think those of us that are on this call that work in the nonprofit or the social sector, we don't have big budgets for it either. So we have to be really creative, and it comes down to simple things. It really comes down to what Janet's talking about. I mean, I've moved for this session to my kitchen. This is my children's art on the wall. Typically, if on a day-to-day basis, I'm Zooming from my bedroom. So you can decide, you know, like there's no barrier anymore between my, you know, like we're showing up. So I think that I'm gonna actually answer your question, Gordon, but that previous question about vulnerability, like we are all having to embrace a new level of vulnerability. We can't hide behind whatever we may have hidden behind if we were. I think that I've learned a lot about my own leadership style over the last 8 months, or it's reinforced that I lead with vulnerability. I didn't know that. That's not like, I don't know, but I've been told that, and I'm learning that. And I think that has served me well in the last period of time, because you have to be real. You can't hide behind anything anymore. There's no room, because they're zooming into your house. So, but we are doing what everybody's doing. We're doing Zoom meetings. We're doing breakout rooms in small groups. We're doing intensive diversity, equity, and inclusion work right now, and having those conversations in small, intimate groups. We are talking about things that we should have been talking about all along. And our culture at Calm, obviously, the fact that we're knee deep in trauma, we focus on relationships. We have open, honest conversations all the time, because the work we do is so hard. We have to be checking in with people as real humans all the time. But we learned, because of the work we do, you have to oscillate between the heavy and the light. You can't stay in one place. So we have to play COVID bingo as a group, and we have to just tell jokes and be silly. And one thing that we started doing that I think we're going to do more of is we typically have an in-person all-staff gathering several times a year, and we honor our milestone anniversaries. And obviously we couldn't get together. So we made videos, these absolutely wonderful videos to tribute people. And those have been so lovely for the people receiving them, but they've been so lovely for everyone that's participating and watching it. And we're going to be creating a video now, or some type of electronic version, kind of getting back to the purpose and hope. Why are people still slogging through all of this? Why are we helping kids and families with trauma? Why are we doing this? And we're going to make a video and really capture everybody's motivation, because I think the telling of that is really important for people, but the listening is really important. And to be able to share those in little doses to really re-inspire and reinvigorate when all of us are exhausted is going to be really powerful. So we're trying to integrate, but there's simple little things, little videos, little breakout groups. It doesn't have to be fancy. And again, the personal emails, I can't tell you how much that mattered to my staff. So it can be real simple.
So these are great ideas. And I want to broaden that topic just a little bit. And as we're getting to wrapping up here, we've only got 5 or 6 minutes to go. To talk a little bit about stress management. And we know that doing some of these creative things can lower the stress, but I want you to take it in 2 different directions, which is, we've all talked about what we've been doing for our staff, for our employees. I'd like to hear a little bit about what you're doing for yourselves, both in terms of stress management and in terms of energy conservation, in terms of setting those boundaries that we talked about. Elena, you talked very nicely about setting boundaries, for your staff, but also what about for you guys? I mean, are you really in your bedroom doing emails at 10 o'clock at night? Because you can. We're all working from home now. So how are each of the 3 of you dealing with your own stress management, your own wellness? And if you want to broaden that, to your staff and some creative things you're doing, that'd be great. Hey, Dave, what if we turn back to you on this one, and then let's keep it fairly short, because we want to wrap up by 4 o'clock, and I want everybody to have a chance here.
Yeah, happy to. I'm drinking more, so that's a good thing and a bad thing. I don't think that's the right answer, but it works. No, but in seriousness, I've embraced just kind of mindfulness and overall wellness. My wife and I have embraced that, generally speaking, but we've really ramped it up over the last 8 months. Meditation, just getting out and for a quick hike, getting outside, doing Zoom calls outside makes a big difference. Leaving the house just to change the scenery helps a lot. We drove across country, and I did my Zoom calls from the car. I did my board call driving through upstate New York. But it had such a big impact on me to just change the scenery and help the mundane of every day, doing the same thing over and over again. But I shut down. I take care of myself. I shut down at 5 or 6 o'clock, and I give myself a break, and I spend time with the family. And I've always personally been kind of good at balancing out. I go really, really hard for a while, but then I take breaks. And we went really, really hard, working until 10 o'clock at night up and through like June, July. And then once I knew things were heading in the right direction and we were, doing okay, I self-edited on the amount of meetings and took some time off. But I was also posting on our Microsoft Teams channels of me hiking and being with family and doing things to show people that it's okay, you have to, and asking people, what are you doing to unwind and get a break? So, again, it's you can give people all the tools, but they have to be the ones that are going to, take care of themselves and practice that self-care with them.
And it sounds like, as you had said earlier, you're trying to be the role model for that, Dave, which I think is great. Elena, how about you? And then if we'll just have a minute or 2, and then we'll turn to Janet with the same question.
Yeah, it was similar. Laughter is critical for me. I mean, if I don't laugh once an hour, I'm just not doing well. So laughing with my kids, laughing with my colleagues, laughing by myself. I don't know. I just like laughing. Getting outside, getting into nature, just walking, moving. I think what's so hard with so much of this is we feel stuck. And I have my own personal issues around feelings of stuckness. But then when I'm physically stuck, that is not a good thing. So I have to move. So movement, and then connection. And we have to be creative, so socially distanced walks. I'm doing lots of walking and talking, and some, the person's not with me, but I'm talking to them and I'm moving. But honestly, I have elementary school age kids, so the the juggle is real. But when I turn it off and I play games with them, we have raucous dance parties, and we just do silly things, and that gives me, and then I crash out, and I binge watch Netflix or something sometimes too. But just trying to be kind and gentle to myself and ride the wave, because some days I feel really energetic and some days I don't, and that's okay.
Great. Thank you, Elena. Janet, what do you think?
Well, I love what everybody's saying. I would say sort of ditto to most of that. We did something fun. I don't ever think of these things. I'm not creative, but here they did how are you taking care of yourself? So we encourage people to send in little videos of what they were doing at home. We got hiking and baking and cooking and walking and running your dog. And it was just wonderful. And people love sharing those things internally. And I think it was just that the fact that they could show you how they were doing and that everybody else could feel it. That was really wonderful. I've never worked at home. I had children, and so it was very important to me to draw boundaries. So I would work late, but always went home and no work at home. So I've been working at home since March the 13th. And this is a real new thing for me. So setting boundaries at home has been really hard because I live in this like one room, that's my office. And that's like, I spend my whole day there. And so I have to force myself to really be intentional about taking care of myself. I get up every morning at 5, I walk with some girlfriends, and then I run every single day. And that's just my way of making sure that I start my day okay, because no matter what happens after that, at least I did something for me. And I have to say, what you see at the morning when the sun comes up is so inspiring and beautiful. It's just great. And I've taken up bread baking again, like everybody else in the world. And so the running helps with the bread baking and the bread eating. And I'm making jam. And so all of my friends are happy because I'm giving it all away to them. So
and we will post your address on the website so everybody can pick it up. Listen, Thanksgiving is coming. I just want to say thank you to each of you for everything. I want to say thank you for allowing me to be part of this hour. Thank you for everything that you've shared. I want to say the same to our participants. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think it was a great conversation. And if you have friends or others who you think might benefit from this, have them go to calmforkids.org/news. This is a recorded session, and they'll be able to see it there or on our YouTube page, Calm Santa Barbara. And with that, I want to thank you all once again, and stay safe, stay healthy. Bye-bye.